There are things that can disturb your peace of mind, and one of them, which I can guarantee will take away your peace, is when your happiness starts depending upon other people. In The Wisdom of Life, Schopenhauer says, by a peculiar weakness of human nature, people generally think too much about the opinion which others form of them, even though this opinion is not in itself essential to happiness. Lassu said something very similar to this. To seek the approval of others is to become their prisoner. But why does this happen? Why do we care so deeply about what others think, even when it slowly destroys our inner peace? And how are we supposed to deal with this, as we are social creatures and have to live in a society to survive? In this video, I will discuss all this through the pessimist thinker Arthur Schopenhauer. So, let's get into it. From an early age, we learn that praise feels good and criticism hurts. Children light up when they receive a gold star, and grown adults still glow under polite compliments. Schopenhauer calls this a peculiar weakness of human nature. We are almost hardwired to crave the approval of others and to place far too much weight on their judgments. He compares the effect of praise on humans to stroking a cat. The cat purrs and the human reacts in much the same way. If you praise a man for something he cares about, a sweet expression of delight will appear on his face, even if the praise is a blatant lie. In short, flattery, however empty, is always welcome. This is the vanity trap. As long as others admire us, our pride is soothed, even when we know deep down that the praise is baseless. Why does this vanity rule us so strongly? Schopenhauer argues that most people become slaves to opinion. They reverse the natural order of happiness by treating the views of others as their real existence, and their own inner life as something secondary and shadowy. In a sense, people turn themselves into actors on a stage. The image they project through fashion, words, and achievements matters more than how they truly feel or what they genuinely believe. Think of the emperor in Hans Christian Andersen's tale, The Emperor's New Clothes. Everyone, nobles, citizens, even the officials, insists on praising the emperor's magnificent garment, even though it does not exist. They all pretend to see a glittering robe rather than admit that they see nothing at all. Why? Because no one wants to appear stupid or disloyal. So they accept a ridiculous lie to protect their egos. This story shows in a painfully clear way how vanity makes us value appearances and shared opinion more than objective reality. In modern life, the same pattern plays out on social media. People spend hours carefully curating images of success, happiness, or beauty, and then live or die by the likes and flattering comments they receive. An extreme example is how some people pay money for staged photos, even renting fake private jet backgrounds just to look impressive online. Schopenhauer would scoff at this. Why sacrifice authenticity for applause? He noted long ago that people proudly boast about wealth or status they do not actually have simply to win admiration. This vanity is universal. Even in everyday conversation, many people repeat popular cliches and buzzwords not because they have thought them through, but because being in sync with the group earns social approval. This vanity-driven obedience to public opinion is dangerous for the truth. Schopenhauer warns that people's minds become fixated on the praise of others, as if it were necessary for happiness. Everybody feels so very pleased when he sees that other people have a good opinion of him, or say anything flattering to his vanity. And when the flattering noise stops or even a small whisper of disapproval appears, we feel deeply wounded and ashamed. We have seen that people love to be flattered. But something even more damning is this. The opinions people hold and share are often shallow, biased, and unreflective. It is one thing to enjoy the praise of others. It is another thing to believe their judgments. Schopenhauer notes that with patience, a person becomes indifferent to other people's opinions precisely because he begins to see how superficial and mistaken they usually are. In his sharp description, we come to see how superficial and futile are most people's thoughts, how narrow their ideas, how mean their sentiments, how perverse their opinions, and how much error there is in most of them. In short, the majority of human opinions are worthless. Schopenhauer insists that a thinking person must learn to discount the crowd. Why are popular opinions so misguided? One reason is that they are often products of convenience, groupthink, or class interests rather than genuine reasoning. Schopenhauer observes that the masses are easily swayed by flattery or authority. Their opinions are swayed not by what is really true and right, but by the favor of the party or class to which they belong. Their judgments become corrupt. With weak intellect, they serve only their will and never seek truth for its own sake. We see this pattern throughout history. In 16th century Europe, the vast consensus of scholars, the party of church and tradition, defended geocentrism, the belief that the earth stands at the center of the universe, and mocked Copernicus. Yet this favored opinion was scientifically false. Later, when Galileo pointed his telescope at Jupiter's moons, many of his peers rejected the evidence because it threatened the dominant worldview. Here, millions of opinions held by an educated elite proved useless and even destructive when compared to the lone individual who saw reality more clearly. This problem is not confined to the past. Today, social media amplifies the echo chamber. False beliefs go viral not because they are well-grounded, but because they flatter group identity or play on fear. Think of baseless medical scares or political rumors. Many people share them instantly, not out of understanding, but out of emotional reaction. Echoing Schopenhauer, Friedrich Nietzsche observed that the majority of people are only too happy to have others think for them and do not at all mind living a life they did not choose. In other words, very few people truly analyze the opinions handed to them. Most simply drift with the tide. This is why popular opinion is such a poor guide. It is usually formed by those who have not really thought things through. When truth becomes inconvenient, popular opinion quickly turns away from it. Schopenhauer is only mildly optimistic here. He compares the rare true thinker to a man whose watch keeps good time when all the clocks in the town are wrong. He writes, "He alone knows the right time, but what use is that to him? For everyone goes by the clocks which speak false. The meaning is brutal. Even if one person sees the truth, it counts for little while the majority follows error." We now see that popular opinions are flimsy, but the foolishness becomes even clearer when we consider what it costs us to chase them. Schopenhauer warns that turning other people's opinions into our measure of reality leads straight into bondage and misery. He points to a tragic inversion. People reverse the natural order by treating the judgments of others as real life and their own inner world as something secondary. They stop striving for health, creativity, and inner peace and instead chase reputation, status, and applause. In extreme cases, people even sacrifice their well-being for honor. Schopenhauer notes that no one would hesitate to sacrifice honor for health or life itself. Yet tragically, many behave as if honor, the estimation of others, were dearer than life. Real-life examples of this kind of self-betrayal are everywhere. Think of a talented student who abandons art to study law, not because he wants to, but because it matches his parents' expectations. He gains their approval but loses his own passion. Or the corporate employee who enters a toxic workplace simply because it is prestigious. Day after day, he endures stress and emotional damage for a boss's approval and a title, while neglecting family, health, and personal dreams. Shakespeare's King Lear offers a timeless example. Lear demands public declarations of love from his daughters. When Cordelia refuses to flatter him and speaks honestly, Lear disowns her while rewarding the empty praise of his elder daughters. His trust in flattering words brings disaster. Lear values appearances over truth, and the tragedy shows how destructive that choice can be. A striking example comes from the Roman story of Virginius who, according to legend, killed his daughter rather than allow her to be dishonored. The implication is horrifying. Reputation and honor were valued more than her life. Schopenhauer would see this as the ultimate corruption of values, choosing opinions, the respect of others over living reality itself. His point is blunt. It is healthier to care about what you think of yourself than what 10 strangers think of you. Society itself trains us into this folly. Schools, media, and workplaces reward recognition more than inner growth. We are graded on performance, not understanding. We are given awards for popularity. Even brands sell prestige, logos on clothing that let us look rich. Without realizing it, we tie our self-worth to these external signals. Schopenhauer dryly remarks that half the troubles and bothers of life may be traced to our anxiety over other people's judgments. In everyday terms, this shows up as nervousness before speaking, despair after a social media slight, or even cheating and lying just to maintain appearances. Many modern anxieties are born from caring too much about how we look in the eyes of others. There is also a political danger here, manipulation. When most people crave praise and approval, those who control public opinion gain power. Politicians and advertisers exploit vanity by showing glamorous lifestyles and offering flattery so that people begin to desire the same approval and validation. Schopenhauer explicitly warns that we find that in every scheme for training up humanity, the maintenance and strengthening of the feeling of honor occupies an important place. Leaders know that if they can hook people on approval, they can control them. History is full of proof. Dictators have used national pride to send masses into war, and demagogues have flattered crowds into following lies. When people trade independent judgment for flattery, they quietly surrender their freedom. The psychological cost is just as severe. Living in constant concern over other people's opinions leads to anxiety, loss of authenticity, and a fractured sense of self. Dystopian fiction shows this in its most extreme form. In Orwell's 1984, citizens are forced to accept that 2 + 2 = 5 because the party demands it, even when it contradicts reality. Their minds are broken because they are trained to care more about authorities' opinion than about truth itself. Schopenhauer's warning is clear. It is madness to let the shifting thoughts of others dictate your happiness. By worshiping the applause of the crowd, we give the masses far too much honor and hand over our personal power. Schopenhauer mocks this mistake. To base your life on external honor, he says, is as foolish as a miser who forgets the end in his eagerness to obtain the means. If most opinions are driven by vanity and error, and if valuing them brings only misery, then what is the alternative? Schopenhauer points to a simple but demanding answer. Cultivate what is truly yours. He reminds us that every man's chief and real existence is in his own skin and not in other people's opinions. In other words, focus on your body, your mind, your character, and the concrete facts of your life. These are the only things that truly accompany you. Your health, your abilities, and your inner values are far more reliable sources of well-being than fame, rank, or reputation. For Schopenhauer, the first and second classes of blessings, health, a sound mind, and genuine relationships are what truly matter. The third class, honor and reputation, is fragile and unstable. He repeatedly insists that sacrificing what is lasting life well-being for what is fleeting honor is an obvious mistake. Even Nietzsche, despite his harsher and more aggressive tone, echoes this spirit in his praise of the free spirit. He admired the rare individuals who refused to let the herd's beliefs and values determine their lives. Nietzsche believed we should question everything, especially popular opinions, and create for ourselves a son of our own. Such a person desires certainty from within and dares to be independent. If Schopenhauer is the voice of pessimism about the masses, NZE is the sting aimed at anyone who blindly follows them. He warns that if we listen only to the crowd, we do not at all mind living a life we did not choose. Both thinkers in their own ways urge us to live deliberately rather than obediently. Practically speaking, this means learning to detach from the hunger for external approval. One classical remedy echoed by the Stoic Epictetus is to treat other people's opinions as something outside your control. As one Stoic explanation puts it, since the responses of others lie in their power, following the desire to please sets us within the power of others and renders us vulnerable to disappointment. In simple terms, you cannot force people to admire you, accept you, or understand you. If you tie your happiness to their shifting judgments, you tie it to the wind. Epictetus warns that seeking admiration turns you into a slave of others. Instead of choosing friends for status, choose them for genuine connection. Oscar Wilde captured this freedom in one sharp line: be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Wilde, who knew public ridicule well, understood the cost of pretending. Schopenhauer would add that once you stop chasing applause, even the slander of half a dozen blockheads loses its power over you. If someone whose character you do not respect can wound you with words, then you have given them an honor they do not deserve. Importantly, Schopenhauer does not argue for bitterness or total withdrawal from society. He argues for grounded self-awareness. In Counsels and Maxims, Schopenhauer writes, "When any wrong statement is made, well received or not refuted, that is no reason why you should despair. You should comfort yourself with the reflection that light will be thrown upon it. The meaning is simple. Stay truthful, stay patient, and do not lose heart when the crowd applauds nonsense.